welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me, then hi, I'm Grace, I'm 19 and I'm currently studying microbiology at the University of Leeds. And leading on from that as well, I've recently moved back to Leeds, as you can see from my new setup. I'm in my new uni room and I'm loving it at the moment. Only a couple of us have moved in at the moment, but by the end of September all of the girls I'm living with have moved in and I'm really looking forward to starting uni again. So obviously we're in September, some of you guys have gone back to school or sixth form, or some of you are going to be starting in a week or so. I've had a lot of questions from you guys, such as how to use flashcards effectively, how I revised for A Level Biology. So I thought I'd do a whole video on how I personally revised for A Level Biology, and maybe you guys could use some of these techniques for your revision as well. So I do hope you find this video useful. Please give it a big thumbs up if you do enjoy it, and make sure to subscribe down below. We've recently hit 300 subscribers, which is so exciting, and I can't wait to continue our journey together and build our community. Make sure to watch until the end of the video to hear my #1 revision technique for A Level Biology. But without further ado, let's get straight into the video. So the first thing that I thought I'd talk about is what resources to buy or to invest in. So a lot of people have said, which revision guides shall I buy? Is there any online things that I can get that would be really helpful? And personally, what I found really beneficial was the CGP A Level Biology revision guide. You've probably heard of CGP, they do a lot of revision guides for all different qualifications, and it's clear, it's concise, it's colourful, it's just a really good resource to have. Obviously for A Level Biology there is a lot of content, so unlike GCSE where you could rely on the revision guide for most of the information, you can't rely on the revision guide for A Level Biology. You do need to refer to your textbook and other sources. However, using this revision guide is still a great way to refresh your mind, pinpoint key points of processes and topics, for example, so I definitely recommend buying that one. I also, for my course, because I did Edexcel A, so I actually bought the Pearson Edexcel revision guide, and that's a very simple revision guide, a lot simpler than the CGP ones, and it just sort of has the basic outline of a lot of the information you need to know. So basically I had three physical sources of information. So I had the Edexcel revision guide, the CGP one, and my textbook. So it was ensuring that I had all types of information from 3 different sources, so it meant that I could learn about the topics and gain as much information as possible. Some websites that I'd recommend as well. So I used Physics and Maths Tutor. They have some printouts for each topic. Again, they're very simple, but they're great summaries of each topic, so they're definitely a good thing to print out and to stick on your wall, just to constantly remind yourself of what are the key parts of each topic. It's also really important to use your exam board website. They've got past papers on there, examiners reports, the mark schemes. We'll go on to talk more about past papers, but definitely check out your exam board's website because they do have a lot of helpful resources on there. And the final website or social media that I would recommend is YouTube, of course. I found myself watching a lot of videos for biology on YouTube. There's a lot of great YouTubers out there. There's Amoeba Sisters, ASAP Science have got really great songs, so definitely have a look at YouTube. It's obviously a more passive way to revise if you're just sort of watching a video. However, it's really good to start a revision session with, to like stimulate your brain and think about what you're going to be revising. So the first revision technique that I want to talk about is a very well-known popular one, and this revision technique can be very successful so long as you do it correctly. So the revision technique I'm talking about is using flashcards or cue cards. So flashcards are a great way to revise and to put down key information. Now the key thing with flashcards is to use as few words as possible. Use symbols to stimulate your brain as well. If you're just writing chunks of information on the flashcards, it's just not going to be beneficial, and there's no point just rewriting your textbook onto the flashcards. Obviously, once you've completed making the flashcards, you're testing yourself using them, but you can also revise and learn while you're making them. So testing yourself by using different symbols and really making yourself think about the information that you're writing down. If you try and rearrange sentences from your textbook and write things in a different way and think about how to make it concise and clear, you're already stimulating your brain and thinking about the revision basically. So I personally made sets of flashcards for each topic. You can also find flashcards online. Quizlet is a great website to use if you want to do online flashcards. Personally, I wrote them out just because I found it more beneficial, and I liked having them in my hands, like physically, if that makes sense. And yeah, so I did them for each topic. I did as many questions as I could think of, just so I could really test myself on everything in the topics. Obviously, creating flashcards does take a long time, so it's very, very important to start this revision process as soon as you go into year 12. So if you're going into year 13 and now and you haven't done it, don't panic, just start creating them now. You may have to work extra hard, but if you are going to use flashcards, then you definitely need to get ahead and start writing them as soon as you can. So the second revision technique I'd like to talk about is the creation of posters, tables and storyboards. So I don't think, obviously I think people make mind maps and posters perhaps, but the use of tables and storyboards I found really, really beneficial. So what I did is I went onto my computer, and for some topics that I found very confusing or that had a lot of information, for example immunology or photosynthesis, respiration, or transcription, translation, a lot of topics that had sort of a process to them but quite a lot of information, I found really helpful to put into a storyboard. So for example, for transcription, I wrote all the key steps into a storyboard and little diagrams as well, and again the process of making and creating that helps you to revise and remember things as well. I also made a table with transcription, mRNA splicing and translation, and I put in the key details. I actually did one box which had sort of a larger chunk of information, then I split that down into bullet points, and then I also said like where they take place and things like that, and it's just a really good visual resource to use to revise from basically. So yeah, I would really, really recommend using tables and storyboards to plot out processes, particularly if you're doing AQA for example and you've got that horrible 25 marker when a lot of processes interlink. You could definitely use posters to combine different topics where you think they would link up. So the next revision technique I want to talk about is blurting. Now this is a very, very good technique. I think it's recently being used by more students, and this technique basically involves getting a blank sheet of paper, picking a topic or whatever topic you've chosen to revise for that session, and writing as much information down as you can remember, and then going over, once you've finished and written down all you can think about, is to go to a textbook or a revision guide and write in a different colour the things you've missed. So that way not only are you actively recalling the information, which is what you'll need to do in the exam, you're also highlighting the gaps in your knowledge. So you can then go over that topic and you know exactly which bits you need to revise more. Blurting is good, I think, as more of a final revision technique. So once you fully understand the topic and you've gone over it, so you've made those storyboards and flashcards and things like that, then blurting I think is really, really good in terms of memory, when you just need to remember stuff rather than the actual learning and understanding of the topic. So the next revision technique or process that I'd like to talk about is the use of past papers. Now this is a crucial part of your revision. If you don't use past papers, then unless you're some sort of genius, then I don't really see how you can be completely successful in A Level Biology, really. This is such an important part. I was lucky in that my school actually produced past paper packs, which went from 2010 to 2018. And yes, obviously some of the papers were slightly out of date because obviously the new A levels were introduced in 2017. However, what the staff had done is crossed out any questions that weren't relevant, because a lot of the old questions on the old past papers were still very relevant to the current exams, and obviously it's the exam technique as well, which is really, really essential and needs to be practiced by using past papers. So they had a past paper pack for each topic, with the mark schemes included as well, and it did come at a cost. I can't remember how much, but obviously it wasn't for profit because it's school, it was just to pay for the printing costs. But basically what I'm trying to say is if your school does something like that, definitely buy those past papers If you don't have that opportunity, then obviously look online on your exam board's website. Physics and Maths Tutor also has a lot of past papers, I think going back to many years ago as well now. So definitely try and look online to find those past papers to use them, because they're an essential part of your revision for A Level Biology. The reason why past papers are so good is because you're able to identify not only where the gaps in your knowledge are, but where you need. So the way I would recommend using past papers is by getting your past paper and first doing it in time conditions with no notes, and then doing it again in your own time with your notes and adding to the paper in a different colour, and then as a third step comparing to the mark scheme. So that way, the first time round, you're able to see where the gaps in your knowledge are. The second time round, it's active revision. You're looking for different information that you need for particular questions. And then by comparing it to the mark scheme, you can see where you may have even further gaps you may need to do more research into. A lot of the time, what students struggle with in A-level biology is the exam technique. Obviously, there is a lot of content for A-level biology, but most of the time that is, you just need to remember it. So it's the application and it's the using the exam technique within the papers, which is where people struggle. If you could know everything about biology, but if you don't know how to apply it to particular questions within the exam, then you're not going to be successful. So definitely use these past papers to practice your exam technique. Also go onto Google, and Snap Revise have got a really good YouTube sort of seminar session. I think it's from 2019, but it's a really good session talking about the different command words that are used in questions, and what you need to include in different questions based on their marks and based on what the question is asking you. So yeah, go onto YouTube and just Snap Revise and have a look at that video, definitely. Another thing that I did for my revision is I printed out all of the command words that were going to be used in my exam, and I recorded down what was needed for each command word question, basically. So for example, if it was a explain question, I knew that I had to take some of my own knowledge and apply it to the question. If it was a compare question, then I knew I needed to look at similarities and differences for both sides and also come to some sort of conclusion depending on the amount of marks. So half of revising for the exam technique is working out what different questions actually mean, what the question's actually asking you, because you could write down a million facts that are all correct, but if that's not what the question is asking you, then you're not going to get any of the marks. And finally, my favourite technique that I used for A-level biology was a question and answer table. Now, you may not have heard of this, you may not know what I'm talking about, but I wish I'd come up with this technique earlier. I actually thought about it, I think it was either towards the end of year 12 or beginning of year 13. Basically what it is you get your specification and you write down all the specification points, and then under each specification point you put a table with 2 columns, one for question and one for answers. You then go to your textbooks, revision guides, your own knowledge, and write down as many questions as you can think of that apply to that specific specification point, and then write down the answers. And then what you can also do is go to past papers online, use the Control F function, and you can find different questions that apply to that part of the specification. So then for all of your A-level biology content, for the whole specification, you've got all the questions and answers you could possibly have. So you've basically got all your revision in one place, and I just found this such a good method of revision. It obviously takes a long time, so again, this is something to start with early and definitely spend a lot of time during the year 12 summer holidays if you need to catch up. But yeah, it's just such a great revision method to use. Obviously the process of making this is revision itself as well. As you're going to different places, you're finding this information, you're recalling this information, and it's just a really great revision method in my opinion anyway. So I use this technique for all of my year 12 stuff. Unfortunately I didn't have time to do it for my year 13 stuff, as I only came up with it towards the end of year 12, the beginning of year 13, but just by using this technique I was able to remember pretty much all of the year 12 stuff really easy as well. I didn't have to go back to it too often because just the process of making this made it so much easier to recall the year 12 stuff. So my boyfriend as well, he's doing computer science at uni, and this is the only revision tech he uses. He doesn't actually do it online. I like to keep my notes neat. I don't have the neatest handwriting or anything like that, so I find it easier to do it on my computer. But what he does is he just folds a piece of paper in half, put questions on one side and answers on the other, and then he again writes the questions and the answers. And then the key thing as well with this method is what he does is folding the paper in half, going and reading the question and then reciting the answer and then checking it. Almost like in, I don't know about all of you, but in lower school when you had spellings and they used look, cover, write, check. So basically you look at the word, you cover it, you write the word again, and then you check that it's correct. So this is kind of the same process in that originally you're looking at the question and the answers, and then when you go to revise, you're looking at the question, you're recalling the answer, and then you're checking that it's correct. And obviously this is how we learn to spell, so this is how we can learn A Level Biology basically. So yeah, that is my favourite revision technique, and if you guys do use it and do find it helpful, then please drop a comment down below to let me know. So I hope you found this video useful. If you want me to do any more in-depth videos into specific revision techniques, please let me know. The actual biology content videos will be coming out very soon. I just thought I'd do this video as it was very highly requested. So please give this video a big thumbs up if you have enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to my channel, it really means a lot. Comment down below if you think you're going to use any of these revision techniques or if you're finding any of them useful, and I will see you in another video. Bye guys.